Have you ever noticed how life has a way of falling apart all at once? One minute, everything feels normal. Then you wake up to bad news. Plans you've been counting on suddenly change. Someone you trusted lets you down. Your phone keeps buzzing with one problem after another. And before you've even had a chance to process what's happening, your mind is already racing. Your chest feels tight. You start imagining every possible outcome, and somehow every one of them seems worse than the last. Honestly, we've all been there. But here's what's interesting. Most of the time, it isn't the situation itself that overwhelms us. It's how quickly we allow it to take control of our minds. The Stoics understood something that's just as true today as it was 2,000 years ago. Life has always been unpredictable. People disappoint you. Plans fall apart. Unexpected problems show up without asking for permission. That's simply part of being alive. But just because there's a storm around you, doesn't mean there has to be one inside you. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Not how to avoid difficult moments, because no one can, but how to move through them with a calm, steady mind. Because once you learn that skill, everything else starts to change. Here's something most people never notice. The moment something goes wrong, we react. We send the text. We raise our voice. We assume the worst. Or we spend the next hour replaying the situation over and over in our heads. It happens so quickly that we barely realize we're doing it. The Stoics trained themselves to do something different. They paused, just for a moment. One slow breath, then another. It sounds almost too simple. But that tiny pause creates space between what happened and what you choose to do next. And that space is where your power lives. Because instead of reacting on impulse, you begin responding with intention. That's real self-control. The Stoics never believed strength meant avoiding hardship. Real strength meant refusing to let hardship decide your next move. Think back to the last time you reacted emotionally. If you'd waited 30 seconds before speaking, would you have said the same thing? Probably not. That's why learning to pause isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's the moment you stop letting emotions drive the car and start taking the wheel yourself. Now here's a Stoic practice with a complicated name, but a surprisingly simple purpose. It's called Premeditatio malorum. All it means is this. Spend a little time thinking about what could go wrong before it actually happens. Not because you're expecting disaster, and definitely not because you're trying to be negative. You do it because life doesn't always go according to plan. Most people assume tomorrow will look exactly like today. So when something unexpected happens, they're completely shaken. The Stoics expected setbacks. They expected delays. They expected disappointment from time to time, not because they were pessimists, but because they understood reality. Think about carrying an umbrella when rain is in the forecast. You're not hoping for rain. You're simply prepared if it comes. The same idea applies here. Before a difficult conversation, before an important meeting, or before making a big decision, ask yourself, what's the hardest thing that could happen? Then ask something even more important. If that happens, who do I want to be? Notice the question isn't, how do I avoid it? It's, how do I respond? That small shift changes everything, because instead of being caught off guard, you've already practiced staying calm. So when life finally tests you, you don't panic, you don't freeze, you don't immediately lose control. You stay grounded, not because the situation is easy, but because your mind has already learned that calm is a choice. and once you've learned to prepare for life's storms. There's one more lesson that changes everything. It's learning to separate the things you can actually control from the things you were never meant to control in the first place. There's a simple exercise the Stoics practiced whenever life became overwhelming. Think of it as a control audit. When everything feels chaotic, stop for a second and ask yourself one question. What's actually within my control right now? Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Maybe you can't control the bad news you just received. You can't control what someone said about you. You can't undo what's already happened. But you can control your next decision, your attitude, your effort, the words you choose, the way you carry yourself through whatever you're facing. Here's the truth. A lot of our stress comes from trying to control things that were never ours to control. We replay yesterday. We worry about tomorrow. We try to manage other people's opinions. It's exhausting. The Stoics approached life differently. Whenever something went wrong, they mentally divided the situation into two parts. What can I control, and what can't I? Then they poured their energy into the first and released the second. Just imagine how much lighter life would feel if you stopped carrying things that were never yours to carry. You can't change the past. You can't control the weather. You can't force people to understand you. But you can choose your next step. And that's where your real power has always been. Even the Stoics had difficult days. They weren't calm because life was easy. They were calm because they had a way of returning to themselves whenever life became messy. You can build that habit too. The next time everything feels overwhelming, step away from the noise, put your phone down for a few minutes, find somewhere quiet, take one slow breath, then another. Now ask yourself, who do I want to be in this moment? Notice the question isn't, why is this happening to me? Or, who's to blame? It's simply, who do I choose to become because of this? That small shift changes everything. Instead of feeling trapped by your circumstances, you begin taking ownership of your response. Then write down 3 simple things. What happened? What you learned? And what's the very next step you can take? Nothing more. You don't need to solve your whole life tonight. You just need to take the next right step. That's how resilience is built. Not through giant breakthroughs, but through small, steady decisions repeated over time. Now here's the part most people miss. They think calm is something you find after life settles down. The Stoics saw it differently. They believed calm is something you practice while life is still uncertain. Anyone can stay peaceful when everything is going well. The real test comes when plans fall apart, when people disappoint you, when life refuses to follow your expectations. That's when Stoicism stops being an interesting philosophy and becomes a way of living. Every setback gives you a choice. You can ask, why is this happening to me? Or you can ask, what is this trying to teach me? That single question changes everything. The obstacle stops looking like punishment. It starts looking like training. And every time you respond with patience instead of panic, you become a little stronger than you were yesterday. Not because life became easier, but because you became steadier. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. Life isn't going to stop surprising you. There will always be setbacks, unexpected losses, moments when it feels like everything is falling apart. None of us can avoid that. But every one of us gets to decide who we'll become when those moments arrive. That's what the Stoics understood. Not how to escape hardship, but how to walk through it without losing yourself. Because the strongest person in the room usually isn't the loudest. It's the one who stays calm while everyone else is losing control. Imagine where you could be a year from now if every setback became another opportunity to grow, instead of another reason to give up. That's what Stoicism offers. Not a life without storms, but the ability to stand steady while they're happening. If this video helped you see things a little differently, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. Every week we explore timeless Stoic wisdom that you can actually use in modern life to build discipline, resilience, confidence, and inner peace. And remember, you may not be able to calm every storm around you, but you can always learn to calm the one within before you go. There's one lesson that completes everything we've talked about today. Learning to stay calm during difficult moments is powerful. But if your happiness still depends on what other people think of you, your peace will always be fragile. That's exactly what I cover in the next video. How to stop caring what everyone thinks. I'll show you how the Stoics broke free from the need for approval and built a kind of confidence that couldn't be shaken by criticism, rejection, or other people's opinions. Click the video on your screen, and I'll see you there.